Today we're sitting down with former Ohio Governor and present UD professor Bob Taft, who is also the great-grandson of President William Taft, the 27th President of the United States. We're here to discuss the recent renaming of the tallest mountain in North America from Mount McKinley to Denali. McKinley was a U.S. president from Ohio, just like your great-grandfather, but Denali is a name of great cultural significance for the Alaska Natives. What is your opinion regarding the name change?
Well, Rachel, my first reaction was I didn't like it because it seemed like it was done abruptly and perhaps for somewhat political reasons in connection with President Obama's trip to Alaska. As I researched it and looked into it a little bit more, I could understand why it might be appropriate. The people in Alaska very much want this to happen. The mountain is in Alaska. McKinley was a very important president, certainly, one of a number of Ohio presidents, including my great-grandfather. Also, by the way, he was a governor of Ohio, too, before he was president. McKinley was a significant president, an important president. He was, of course, tragically assassinated at the beginning, very early on in his second term. So I would have hoped that there would have been perhaps a little more preparation, more consultation with Ohio and Ohio leaders, and perhaps an attempt to designate some kind of a national monument or memorial to President McKinley. There is a McKinley Memorial up in Canton, Ohio, where he lived for many, many years, which is a locally owned and operated by the local historical society. But of course, for my great-grandfather, we have a national site in Cincinnati. It's the National William Howard Taft Historic Site, which is his birthplace.
Mm-hmm. So what is McKinley's legacy? What does that mean for Ohio?
Well, it's very interesting. There were 6 Ohio presidents in a span of about, a little over 50 years, starting with Grant, and going all the way through McKinley and my great-grandfather, and then President Harding. So it's a sign of how prominent Ohio was in the politics of that day. The power that Ohio had, perhaps that the mountain in Alaska was named after President McKinley sometime after he passed away. But McKinley is viewed as a strong leader, a good president, perhaps not a great president, but a very significant president. He led us through the Spanish-American War, which was very successful and really was the beginning of the United States leadership in the world as a whole. So he's an important figure, and he should be recognized in some fashion in a national way, if not by a mountain up in Alaska, in some other fashion.
Mm-hmm. So what would you propose for people to continue remembering his legacy today?
Well, I would say that McKinley was someone who was respected in government. He knew how to get things done. He was an expert on the national tariff. He passed significant tariff legislation when he was president. He was also someone who had a reputation for putting his pulse on public opinion, on listening to the people, which is a very important quality for leaders. And so I believe that we should remember him as an Ohio leader, both within the state, as governor, as a congressman from Ohio, but also as an important national leader in our nation's history, and one of Ohio's number of presidents, and one of the reasons that we call Ohio the mother of presidents.
Sure. So yourself as a politician from Ohio and having familial ties to another U.S. president and numerous Ohio governors or congresspeople, what significance does the renaming of the mountain have for you?
Well, to me, the renaming of the mountain reflects the changing of the times.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when the mountain was first named, Alaska was not a state. There was really no great awareness about the local ethnic cultural heritage and the importance of the name Denali. So that certainly changed. I would say Ohio is still an influential state, but not as dominant as we were in the latter part of the 19th century. So Ohio congressmen resisted this move by the national government for a long time, the change from McKinley to Denali, but at some point they just didn't have the ability to stop it any longer, although I wish it had happened a little less suddenly and with more consultation with our congressional delegation in Washington.
Sure. So you wish the Ohio representatives had been involved in
I wish that the president had reached out to them and given them notice and an opportunity to respond and perhaps start working, as maybe they now are, I hope they are, on some other kind of national site that would recognize the accomplishments of an important Ohio president, William McKinley.
So why do you think that UD students should be concerned or aware about the name change that has taken place?
Well, I think first of all, to understand the history of the peoples who lived in the United States before people came here from Europe and other parts of the world, and that their heritage is important and a heritage that we should remember. I think that's important. And also to understand how politics and decisions are made in Washington, D.C., to understand also an opportunity to look into history and to examine the legacy of an important Ohio president, William McKinley, and also maybe, if they really like history, to get interested in some of the trivia. For example, doing research just for this interview, I had forgotten the fact that McKinley was at one time, he was on the $500 bill, which of course is no longer, printed or produced, but collectors have $500 bills with President McKinley on them. So he was quite a prominent national figure at the time, and that's what we forget. Ohio's role, Ohio's influence, and at the turn of the last century, a president from Ohio who had a major impact on the country and on the world through the Spanish-American War.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Rachel. Thanks. Nice to be with you.
Wonderful to sit down with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.